Welcome to the HR Fix, the HR podcast for HR professionals who want to grow and be the best. I'm Jude Fidler and I'll be your host. So come and join us on our journey as we change an entire industry. Come on, let's get started. There's a case that I was asked to assist with yesterday, which was from a HR professional. And unfortunately, the HR professional has got very upset about it and said that they can't deal with it and that they're suffering from imposter syndrome, and they were actually crying on the phone. And they really feel that they're out of the depth. And it does feel to them like, the worst case in the world. And it is quite complex. So the situation in brief, just to have a look at the facts, is that there's a capability process. And in the middle of the capability process, the manager, the boss who's instructing HR, has turned around and said, I want to get rid of this person, come what may. So they were going through a nice slow capability, and now it's had to speed up a bit. And they're talking about potential misconduct, but we've already started on the other route of going down a capability. The employee has already put in a grievance because they weren't happy with the capability. And now the employee is threatening long-term sick. So they've started that process. So they've only been off a couple of days, but they've got a sick note for the next 6 weeks. So the HR professional is coming under fire by her managers and being instructed, you've got to get rid of this person. We need to get them off the payroll as quickly as possible. But actually, they're finding that they can't do much. What they would normally do with somebody who's in the very early stages of a longer term sickness is just leave them and just see how the sickness goes, and then probably contact them towards the end of that 6-week period to see if they can make any reasonable adjustments, have an occupational health, invite them to a welfare meeting, all of those sorts of normal things. However, they feel that they can't be doing that because there's a grievance that's open. And also now they've got a new instruction that they should be moving ahead with this process. And they were halfway through a capability process anyway. So the upshot is that this HR professional is saying, I can't cope. There's just too much going on. And my answer to that, and one of the concepts that we teach on our HR bootcamp and our HR operating system, is to break it all down. There's no way that you can deal with that amount of issues in one go. Even when you get one issue, we actually need to usually break it down. So when you've got 4 or 5 other things floating around and open projects to do with one particular issue or one process that other things are coming into, you need you need to break it all down. You need to prioritize. You need to work out which ones. We know that a grievance will trump any sort of capability. We know that looking after the employee's welfare is also going to come first. So any sort of occupational health, the capability was already started. So that needs to be prioritized. You just need to think about how these things fit together. But the key to doing that is to literally breaking it all down into the lowest common denominator and then probably breaking it down again. If you're still confused and overwhelmed once you've broken it down, then guess what? That's just a sign that you need to break it down again. There is no harm in doing that. Keep on breaking it down until you understand it, until you get it. If it's just issues, there's a grievance, but actually that's made up of 15 different issues, then actually, or some evidence or some different things about different people, break that down. Maybe even, you need to separate it into separate grievances and then inform the employee that that's what you're doing because that's why you think it's easier. Why do you think that's easier? Explain it to them. As long as you're justifying what you're doing, then you can absolutely take a strategy. It's what we always talk about, right? Take the facts and build a strategy around it. Don't just take it and shove it into the nearest process. Don't just think, oh, it's a grievance, I have to do it this certain way. That's not the case. That's not what we have to do. But the key to these sorts of things is keeping our cool, understanding priorities, understanding risks, and being able to break these things down. In fact, this is very often my advice when I'm speaking to and advising and helping or supporting HR professionals. And even with things that look really, really simple. So it might be, I don't know, a flexible working. We're just thinking about things that we did yesterday. A flexible working request or a change to contractual terms. So with a flexible working request, if somebody wants to change their hours, it's not enough just to know that they want to change their hours. We have to know why. We have to break that down. Why? Who? What's going to happen to your work? Who else can be helping with this? Is it for a longer period of time? Is it for a shorter period of time? What changes is there going to be? Are we looking at, reducing it even further? Can it be for a temporary trial period? All those sorts of things. Break it down to we can do this, but we can't do that. Maybe we can look at this, or maybe we can do this for a temporary basis. But just break everything down until we understand it, until we get to grips with it. Far too often, I'm seeing HR professionals who are dealing with issues that they don't understand. And they think that they have to understand that. They think that they can't ask the why is why I always talk about this. The why is the most powerful question. But people go, well, it's a weak question because it means you don't understand. How are we supposed to understand if people are giving us bad information or the wrong information? Why is the most powerful question? Because it means that we can then understand what our jobs are to be able to do them. If we don't start asking these questions, then we're literally setting ourselves up to fail and we're never going to succeed. So asking things, developing things, dividing it up, splitting it down, finding out who, why, what with every single issue. I would say more often than not, every single issue that comes up is something that we need to be thinking about. It's actually really interesting that, as I mentioned before, I've also taken on a few employee cases here and there. And There's exactly the same issue when you're dealing with an employee case. And a lot of employees will come to me and say, I've got a case, I've got a claim, but I've got a process going on. I put in a grievance and I'm waiting to resign and claim constructive dismissal. But actually, I've already put in an SAR and there's a without prejudice going on as well. And they just get, anybody would get totally confused and totally overwhelmed by the amount of processes and letters that are flying around about different processes. And that's why we say a part of breaking it down for me is actually putting headings and titles on letters. So if you've got 4 different issues flying around without prejudice, an SAR, a grievance, and maybe you're looking to resign as well and build up a case for constructive dismissal, something like that, then putting headings on letters actually helps compartmentalize them, helps put them in their own stream so you can see what's going on with different ones and who's applied to what. But it works on both sides, the employee and also the employer. When you're dealing with different things, it just helps to break it down. It helps to make a difference in your brain. I was just looking at actually my notes from yesterday with other people that I advised, and there was a case where a HR professional had come to us and said, we've got a policy where we make people take their excess holiday in their notice period. So if they've accrued and there's any holiday that's outstanding at the end of when they're working their notice, then we make them take it so that there isn't an additional payment when they leave. And that's a typical policy that many people might have in their contracts. But she said, although it's in the contract, we would normally write to them and we confirm that that's the case. And I forgot to do that. But payroll have cottoned on to the fact that actually that money's not owed. My bosses don't know that it's owed. And I feel that I'm in a really bad position and I don't know what to do. And she, again, was really upset. What do I do? How do I get out of this? And the answer to that was, guess what? Break it down. So let's have a look. We've got the contractual right. We were able to do it. And then let's look at the letters. What did we say about holiday? Did we say there was any holiday outstanding? Was that a complete, did we forget was it a complete omission? Did we forget to look at it anyway? Or have we mentioned it and we actually did mention it, but we didn't mention it in the right way? Or we said there was actually a breakdown when you looked at it in the contract, there was a difference between the statutory holiday and the additional holiday that they were entitled to. So then we had to work out how much holiday they'd actually taken and whether or not there was an additional statutory leave or which bit we could make them take it in their notice. But even though we'd not told them, but were they still in their notice period now or had they actually finished the notice period? So we'd actually tag it on to the end. It was actually a 3-month notice period. So that it was actually the period that had to accrue as well during the notice, which hadn't also been mentioned in the letter, which was a good thing because it meant that we hadn't done the letter right in the first place so that we could actually amend it and that we could tell that we could add in the bits that we'd already had missing. There's these sorts of things, but to deal with these problems on their own is completely overwhelming. It is completely out of our, normal everyday work and our normal remit to be able to deal with legal problems, emotional problems. When we say emotions high, intelligence is low, so we're not thinking properly about these things either. But actually to be able to break it down, deal with it. What can I do this? Yes or no? Is this allowed? Yes or no? Have I told the employee? Yes or no? How does this work with where we are inside of the notice period? Was really, really helpful to get a strategy together, to know how to deal with it, to know how to move forward, and to know how to protect the organization and also to report back to employees. It's a really important concept inside of HR. And it's one that I hope that you will adopt. It's a mindset shift and it's what we're doing to change the world of HR. I hope you have a great day. Happy HRing.